Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 5 based on novel. So let's start. A figure was quietly seated on a flat platform deep within the sky hall of the Tao sect. Surging Nirvana chi spread out from the Pill River. Finally, it lingered around her like a fog, causing her to appear a little more ethereal. However, a silent training did not continue for long. A somewhat anxious rushing wind sound suddenly appeared from behind. This caused her to frown slightly. Elder sister, something big has happened. However, before she could even issue a reprimand, a clear voice was transmitted behind her. The red-dressed Ying Huan's lovely body gently landed on the platform and anxiously said, "What happened?" Ying Xiaoxiao glanced at the panting Ying Huan behind from the corner of her eyes. Her tone did not have much fluctuation. "Do you still remember that Lin Dong whom I mentioned to you before? That 100 Empire War champion who forsook the Sky Hall and joined the Desolate Hall, right? Why? Has he provoked you again?" Ying Xiaoxiao swept her long hand over the green long sword and spoke without raising her head. "That fellow obtained the qualification for the Pill River head immersion the moment he entered the Desolate Hall, since he obtained the champion spot of the 100 Empire War," Ying Huan said. "He is the 100 Empire War's champion. It is not overboard to enjoy such a reward. What are you unhappy about?" Ying Xiaoxiao was not surprised. Therefore, she spoke in a casual manner. "That's not it. That fellow," Ying Huan's suet jade-like long hand was clenched. She immediately gritted her teeth and said, "That fellow has already stayed at the bottom of the Pill River for 8 days. Oh. Some emotion was finally revealed on Ying Xiaoxiao's quiet pool-like face. She turned her head with some surprise and said, "He has actually endured for 8 days. Being someone who had also experienced the Pill River head immersion, Ying Xiaoxiao clearly understood the terrifying pressure at the bottom of the Pill River. Back then, she could only endure for 8 days despite her best efforts. This result was already the best amongst the current younger generation of the Tao sect. It was unexpected that there was actually someone who was able to accomplish the same results as her today. It seems like Lin Dong is skilled indeed. How could that fellow be compared with elder sister? You are the most outstanding younger generation member in our Tao sect all these years," Ying Huan curled her lips and said. "However, the Pill River of the Desolate Hall cannot be compared to ours and the pressure created is different. Nonetheless, it is not easy for him to be able to endure 8 days." Ying Xiaoxiao softly said. But Ying Huan hesitated for a moment. Finally, she clenched her teeth and said, "But that fellow still does not show any signs of coming out even after staying for 8 days at the bottom of the Pill River." After Ying Huan's words sounded out, she could sense Ying Xiaoxiao's figure froze momentarily. The latter's hand, which was holding onto the green longsword, also tightened in an instant. Clearly, a rare wave had been stirred in the latter's heart because of her words. "He has yet to show any signs of coming out?" Ying Xiaoxiao's body stiffened for a moment, before she finally turned her head around. Her pretty face was somewhat solemn as she looked at Ying Huan and inquired, "I?" Currently, quite a number of disciples from the 4 halls are paying attention to the Pill River of the Desolate Hall. It is rumored that the fellow is still at the bottom of the Pill River and has yet to show signs of surfacing," Ying Huan laughed bitterly. It was simply too difficult for him to imagine that the fellow, who was reprimanded by her for thinking too highly of himself, would actually obtain such a great result during the Pill River head immersion. "So it's like this," Ying Xiaoxiao's pretty eyes were focused. Her delicate finger gently landed on her sword. It seems like their Tao sect had recruited quite an outstanding disciple this time around. "Elder sister, the best result any Tao sect disciple achieved during the Pill River head immersion is enduring for around 8 days or so. Just what happened to this fellow this time around? Could he have been directly pressured to death?" Ying Huan muttered. The Desolate Hall's teacher Uncle Chen Jin is definitely observing Lin Dong closely at this moment. How could he have not detected it if the latter was already crushed to death? Ying Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes while facing Ying Huan. Immediately, a deep thought flashed across her eyes as she said, Typically speaking, enduring for 8 days or so during the Pill River head immersion should be the most outstanding result. However, there are also some exceptions during the history of our Dao sect. Oh! Yin Huan was startled. Back then, Senior Ju Tong endured for 13 days. Of course, it is not that he was unable to continue enduring. Instead, it was because he had completely absorbed all the Nirvana golden chi at the bottom of the Pill River during those 13 days, Ying Xiao slowly explained. Completely absorbing all of it. Yin Huan was involuntarily stunned. The Nirvana golden chi was extremely wild and violent. Even those experts who had reached the 7 Yuan Nirvana stage would have difficulty absorbing all of them. Every year, almost all of the disciples from the 4 halls who possessed the qualification to obtain the Pill River head immersion did not dare to overestimate themselves and absorb all of those Nirvana golden chi. All they thought about was to try their best to endure 1 day longer at the bottom and absorb a little more Nirvana golden chi. One party was trying their best to absorb a little more, while the other was intending to absorb all the Nirvana golden chi. These two were already at 2 completely different levels. However, elder sister, the senior Ju Tong that you mentioned should be that super fearsome person who comprehended the Great Desolation scripture and charged up to the Yuan Gate to kill 3 of their great elders, right? Ying Huan suddenly recovered and spoke weakly. Ying Xiao nodded slightly. Even her heart involuntarily felt an unusual worship towards this person when mentioning his name. Of course, it was likely that many Dao sect's disciples regarded him as a god. With only a sword, he charged up to the strongest faction in the Eastern Xian region, Yuan Gate, and killed 3 great elders one after another. In the end, he forced the Yuan Gate to activate the Great Sect formation to avoid a calamity. Even the chief of the Yuan Gate, who possessed an extremely high status within the Eastern Xian region, was forced to intervene. Although the final situation caused the Dao sect to be incomparably furious, they involuntarily felt some pride under this fury. So what if it was the Yuan Gate? Our Dao sect's disciple is able to kill 3 of your great elders. The Yuan Gate and the Dao sect were always on bad terms, and there were also numerous conflicts amongst their disciples. One of the reasons was because of Ju Tong's incident back then. How could that fellow called Lin Dong be comparable to senior Ju Tong? Ying Huan bit her lips and demanded. However, the current situation is reality. There are only 2 reasons why he continues to stay at the bottom of the Pill River. One is that he had been pressured until he can no longer move and cannot leave as he pleased. The second is that he also possessed the same thought as senior Ju Tong. He wants to completely absorb all the Nirvana golden chi at the bottom of the Pill River. Ying Xiao spoke faintly. Although I am not aware of how he is able to do so, his potential is indeed quite shocking. Ying Huan widened her mouth, but she did not say anything. A moment later, she finally muttered, "Could it be that elder sister thinks that this fellow will become like senior Ju Tong?" Senior Ju Tong is an exceptional genius. Even if Lin Dong is able to absorb all of the Nirvana golden chi at the bottom of the Pill River, there is still a huge gulf between him and senior Ju Tong in terms of their achievements. One should at the very least wait until he truly comprehends the Great Desolation scripture before judging, Ying Xiao softly replied. Moreover, whether he is currently able to do what senior Ju Tong did and absorb all the Nirvana golden chi at the bottom of the Pill River in an overbearing fashion is still uncertain. However, this matter will likely come to a conclusion soon. I am also very curious. Ying Xiao turned her head around. Her eyes looked towards the direction where the Desolate Hall was located. Some interest flashed across her pretty eyes. She also wished to see just what kind of great ability this 100 Empire War champion, who had stirred quite a big commotion the moment he entered the Dao sect, actually possessed. Being the most lively place currently within the Dao sect, the sky above the Desolate Hall's Pill River was frequently filled with the sound of rushing wind. Numerous figures stood on the platforms around. Their eyes were all locked towards a direction. That was the black whirlpool that was at the middle of the Pill River. Currently, news that Lin Dong had endured for 8 days within the Pill River had become common knowledge within the Dao sect. Even some elders had come over to witness it. They also paid great attention to this. After all, amongst the current younger generation of Dao sect, only Ying Xiaoxiao had done it before. Of course, the thing that they paid most attention about was that Lin Dong still showed no signs of appearing despite enduring for 8 days. This scene stunned quite a number of extremely experienced people within the Dao sect too. That was because it seemed like a similar situation had also occurred a century ago. At that time, the one who had caused this uproar, the one who charged into Yuan Gate all by himself, his name was called Zhu Tong. Some of the older generation members looked towards the direction of the Desolate Hall's Pearl River from a great distance. They muttered to themselves, "Our Dao sect, could another Zhu Tong emerge again?" Golden light permeated the quiet dark bottom of the Pearl River. Soft bubble bursting sound was repeatedly emitted from within before a shocking ripple vaguely spread apart. 11 days had passed since Lin Dong entered the bottom of the Pearl River. Although the Desolate Hall had turned into an uproar because of this, during this period of time, the deepest region of the Pearl River was completely silent. Only the slight fluctuating breath within the golden light cover gave this place an extremely faint amount of life. During these 11 days, the Nirvana golden chi, which was originally hundreds of feet wide, was currently only a couple of dozens of feet in size. Although the size of the Nirvana golden chi had shrunk, the Nirvana golden chi within had grown extremely viscous. There was even a trace of it solidifying. As the Nirvana golden chi grew thicker, the pressure within it became extremely terrifying following the accumulation over the 11 days. Even a 6-yuan Nirvana stage expert would definitely not be able to endure for long due to the pressure. Crack crack. Shifting one's focus into the flickering bright golden light of the Nirvana golden chi, it was possible to hear a slight cracking sound that was emitted only because of the great pressure. There was partial visibility within the golden light, revealing a figure that was seated within. That human figure was just like an old monk quietly seated within the golden light. A layer of green scale armor covered the surface of his body. However, the green light that was currently on the scale armor had become completely dull. Some cracked lines had also surfaced on the scale armor. Clearly, it had reached its limits. There was some redness on the cracks of the scales. If one was to carefully observe it, one would discover that it was actually some solidified blood. The dark red color caused one to be startled when looking at it. One could tell how bitterly Lin Dong had endured during this period of time. The Pearl River was quite mysterious. The pressure that grew daily in the deepest part was becoming even more frightening by the day. Currently, after 11 days of accumulation, the pressure had reached a terrifying level. If it was not because Lin Dong had mastered the green heaven materialized dragon skill, he might be forcefully crushed by this pressure until he turned into a lump of flesh. Despite so, if one's eyesight could penetrate through the layer of scale armor, one could still see the cracked wounds that were formed on Lin Dong's skin. The bottom of the Pearl River was actually so frightening. Although Lin Dong's body was filled with injuries, his eyes were still tightly shut. Waves after waves of devouring power continued to spread from within his body, swallowing those wild and violent vicious Nirvana golden chi domineeringly. The current him urgently needed these things. That was because with the gradual accumulation of the Nirvana golden chi within his body, Lin Dong appeared to have sensed something unique. The thing that he was most intrigued by was the Yuan spirit chi within that cluster of gold-colored Nirvana chi. After 11 days of absorbing Nirvana golden chi, the accumulation of this cluster of Yuan spirit chi within his body had also increased by multiple times. Moreover, it was exceptionally thick. Numerous golden-colored threads lingered and rotated within it, giving it an extremely beautiful appearance. Lin Dong's mind was similarly focusing on this Yuan spirit chi. With its strengthening, Lin Dong was able to sense a terrifying strength within it. That should be the so-called Yuan spirit force. Only the experts, whose body had formed a Yuan spirit, would be able to use this powerful energy. This energy was something Lin Dong that greatly coveted. He was aware that if he could control this energy, it would definitely become quite a strong finishing move. A slight ripple appeared within the golden Yuan spirit chi. An endless amount of golden-colored threads were tangled with each other within it and appeared to be merging with each other. With the merger of these golden threads, this irregularly shaped cluster of Yuan spirit chi showed signs of being able to transform into various forms. Lin Dong quietly observed the change of this cluster of Yuan spirit chi. Immediately, he sunk into deep thought. After all, he had yet to reach the 7 yuan Nirvana stage and his body had yet to produce yuan spirit chi that belonged to him. Although this thing currently existed within his body, it was impossible for him to manipulate it as easily as something that he had been created through training. These yuan spirit chi was after all something foreign. Only by creating his own yuan spirit chi would he be free himself of any shackles. At that time, even if he was destroyed, his yuan spirit would still survive. Even though he was unable to transform all these yuan spirit chi into his own yuan spirit, he was able to transform it into other things. Thoughts swiftly flew within Lin Dong's mind. These yuan spirit chi contained an extremely sharp and overbearing strength. If he was to abandon it and not use it, it would truly be a waste of resources. Since it cannot be transformed into my own yuan spirit, I shall transform it into a yuan spirit object. A thought flashed through Lin Dong's heart. Only those experts who had completely formed their yuan spirit were able to create something like this. However, Lin Dong was currently quite rich in yuan spirit chi and he should be able to succeed. After making up his mind, Lin Dong immediately revealed his resolute character. The pressure at the bottom of the Pill River also gradually began to strengthen. The yuan power within his body was at the peak of the 4 yuan Nirvana stage and it was possible for him to break through to the 5 yuan Nirvana stage anytime. Therefore, he must make the best use of his time now. The order from his mind was swiftly transferred into that cluster of golden yuan spirit chi. After which, the latter immediately began to wiggle swiftly. Countless gold threads collided with each other and merged. A shocking ripple was emitted from within. Amidst this collision, this cluster of yuan spirit chi actually began to strangely shrink gradually. The yuan spirit chi also became increasingly thick and sticky while it grew smaller and smaller. Refine. A low and deep voice suddenly sounded within Lin Dong's heart. After which, black devouring strength swiftly surged into the dantian. It arrogantly wrapped around the gold-colored ball. Amidst this wrapping, the gold-colored liquid ball began to slowly collapse. They became like a pile of noodle that was slowly molded into a disc shape. This was a delicate task that required precise control. Fortunately, Lin Dong was easily able to control the devouring power. Hence, little flaws occurred. That Nirvana golden chi that emerged as liquid was gradually taking shape under Lin Dong's command. This transformation was quite a slow process. Moreover, one could tell that even though Lin Dong possessed the devouring power to assist him, it was still extremely tough for him to do so. A large amount of yuan power was swiftly consumed. It was fortunate that there was Nirvana golden chi continuously flowing into his body and completely replenishing him. With the gradual flow of time, the gold-colored item also slowly took shape. Although it still appeared rather crude, it was vaguely possible to see an exceptionally sharp ripple being emitted. The black devouring power was just like a graver that continued to dance over the cluster of yuan spirit chi. Much focus was placed on its orbit. Under this kind of focus, the shape of the yuan spirit chi began to undergo a drastic transformation. It slowly unleashed all of the sharpness it possessed. While Lin Dong was focusing on shaping the cluster of yuan spirit chi, the originally dim scale armor outside of his body had dimmed completely. Cracked lines appeared on its surface. Some frightening pressure had begun to seep into the scale armor and directly pressed onto Lin Dong's body. Creak! Blood shot out from Lin Dong's skin under this heavy pressure. Within a short moment, it had dyed his skin completely red, giving him an extremely shocking appearance. The scale armor is unable to endure any longer, huh? Lin Dong had clearly also sensed the intense pain that was transmitted from the surface of his body. He immediately frowned a little. The green heaven materialized dragon skill could be considered his strongest defense. It is unexpected that it was also unable to endure this pressure for a prolonged period. However, Lin Dong currently needed to forge that cluster of yuan spirit chi and he was unable to divert any attention to deal with the pressure outside. I need to hurry up. Lin Dong softly muttered before his mind once again looked into his dantian. A black-colored light flashed past that spot within lightning-like speed and continued to cut the cluster of yuan spirit chi. After Lin Dong muttered to himself, those black lights suddenly flashed at an even faster rate. Numerous black afterimages appeared. Slashing sound resounded over the entire Dantian. With this increased speed, the Yuan spirit chi also began to wiggle increasingly rapidly. It appeared as though something was about to be born. Lin Dong's mind was extremely focused, while some anxiety also surfaced within his heart. The black light cut through the Yuan spirit chi in a lightning-like manner before it suddenly paused. After which, the light cut through a little of the Yuan spirit chi again. In an instant, that action appeared to be like the final dot of a dragon eye when drawing a dragon. Bright golden light suddenly erupted from within his Dantian. The gold light fluctuated and only slowly scattered a moment later. Lin Dong's mind also instantly shot towards the area below his Dantian. Golden light was deposited there. There was vaguely a shocking sharpness spreading from it. The golden light spread and a golden item slowly surfaced. It was a palm-sized golden ring. The edge of the golden ring contained 8 sharp protruding scale teeth. The scale teeth were not straight. Instead, it was curled at an angle. A light fluctuated at the curl and golden light shot in all directions. There was vaguely some dragon lines appearing on the golden ring. It appeared lifelike at a glance, looking just like a huge dragon rising to the sky. Its aura was powerful. Lin Dong was a little surprised as he looked at this golden ring, which had taken shape. A wild joy immediately surged up his eyes. He could sense an extremely frightening ripple from this golden ring, and that ripple caused even himself to feel fearful. This was a fearsome weapon that was formed entirely from Yuan spirit chi. Although it was not a soul treasure, its strength would definitely exceed that of the black dragon sky-roaring seal. I shall call you the Dragon Yuan Ring. Lin Dong parted his mouth and smiled. He allowed this golden ring to quietly lie within his Dantian. When he fought with others in the future, this thing would definitely be able to catch the other party by surprise. Its sharpness was sufficient to penetrate the defenses of a 7 Yuan Nirvana stage expert. Next, it's time to take care of the things outside. Lin Dong muttered to himself. His mind swiftly withdrew from the interior of his body. After which, he opened his eyes and looked at the viscous Nirvana golden chi outside. A smile surfaced on his blood-dyed face. He could sense that the surging Yuan power within his body seemed to be at the point where it was about to make a breakthrough. Faint spiderweb-like cracks rapidly appeared on the surface of his scale armor, and the green glow enveloping them grew extremely faint. Small pieces of scales continuously broke off, before they were grinded to dust by the frightening surrounding pressure. Lin Dong looked at his rapidly crumbling scale armor before his face turned incredibly solemn. However, he did not panic. Although the pressure from his surroundings is fearsome, it had not reached the level where he had no choice but to retreat. I'm curious to see how terrifying this pressure actually is. Lin Dong cracked a smile as a tremor tore through his body. At this moment, the layer of scale armor emitted cracking noise, before it broke into countless pieces and shattered. Finally, it was reduced into dust and scattered off. Roar! Following the dissipation of his scale armor, endless torrents of frightening pressure instantly swarmed every inch of Lin Dong's body. Immediately, a few bloody wounds started forming on his body. Following the swarm of frightening pressure, a mysterious black shade started to seep bit by bit out of Lin Dong's body. At the end, it transformed into a glowing black membrane that fully enveloped his body. On the surface of the membrane were innumerable microscopic black holes, which were swirling around and emitting pulses of devouring force. They proceeded to gorge and devour the thick Nirvana golden chi in his surroundings and that formless pressure. Obviously, the pressure originating from the depths of the Pill River was not something that could contend with the overbearing devouring force that could swallow everything in the world. Vigorous amounts of Nirvana golden chi accompanied the pressure and endlessly entered Lin Dong's body. Under the all-out swallowing, the surrounding golden glow started to shrink bit by bit. At the same time, the aura that was emanating from within Lin Dong started to grow in strength. After completely settling the problem within his body, the outside pressure was no longer able to cause much trouble for Lin Dong. At this rate, this lump of Nirvana golden chi would actually be completely swallowed by him. The domineering nature of the devouring ancestral symbol was once again clearly displayed. Time passed rapidly at the depths of the Pill River as the golden glow continued to grow dimmer. At the same time, the temperature of Lindong's body gradually started to rise, causing steam bubbles to form within the icy-cold river water. As the water started to boil, the yuan power fluctuations that was slowly spreading out from Lindong's body suddenly turned violent. Ripples started to spread endlessly out from Lindong's body before fully dissipating at a distance away. From the looks of it, the yuan power within Lindong was in an unstable state. And this unstable state was an indication of an upcoming Nirvana tribulation. By drawing support from Pill River head immersion, Lindong's strength had increased, allowing him to officially attack the 5 yuan Nirvana stage. Lindong quietly sat at the bottom of the Pill River, as violent yuan power seeped out of his body. Even the frightening pressure present here was scattered by the emissions, forming a region of a few feet around Lindong's body. Has it finally arrived? Lindong's skin was bright red as he slowly opened his eyes, revealing a relieved and joyful expression within them. He had been waiting for this day for quite some time now. The 5th Nirvana stage tribulation was not an easy task for most Nirvana stage experts. However, considering the resilience of his body, Lindong did not have much to fear. The green heaven materialized dragon skill not only made Lindong's skin and muscles hardy and resilient, even his internal organs and viscera were much more stronger than those experts of similar cultivation levels. Since it has arrived, let me experience just how frightening the 5th Nirvana tribulation is. As he pursed his lips, Lindong formed a seal with his hands, before shutting his eyes tight again. Soon after, a frightening heat wave erupted from within his body and radiated outwards. Crackling sounds were formed as violent waves spread across all directions. Boom boom. Wild and explosive yuan power violent erupted from Lindong's body, causing the river water surrounding him to explosively vibrate. In contrast, his body was just like an old tree with deep roots, which did not move a single inch within those violent water flows. Clearly, Lindong's 5th Nirvana tribulation had officially arrived. The bottom of the Pill River hand was violently churning due to the fluctuations caused by Lindong. However, it was still calm and serene on the surface of the Pill Over. Occasionally, waves would swell up, causing the Nirvana chi to spread and fill the air. The various platforms surrounding the Pill River were now completely filled with people. Currently, Lindong had already stayed at the bottom of the Pill River for 11 days. This news had rapidly spread throughout the entire Dao sect and the resulting commotion was clearly inevitable. Within the Dao sect, there would always be a few elite disciples that would undergo the Pill River head immersion every year. However, amongst them, the longest amount of time one endure was 8 days. And these few people were without a doubt the most outstanding individuals within the younger generation sect members. However, this time, there was actually a person who managed to stay at the bottom of the Pill River for 11 full days. This result clearly outshone every other younger generation member. This was also something that the current most outstanding younger generation member, Ying Xiaoxiao, could not compare with. What made people suck in their tongue the most was that, the fellow who achieved such a frightening result, was actually a new disciple that had just entered the Dao sect. When this news spread, it undoubtedly attracted attention from everywhere. Many disciples came over after catching wind of the news as they wanted to clarify their doubts. This was the main reason why the Desolate Hall was so lively these few days. On the platform that was closest to the Pill River, stood an ample amount of people. These people had formed for distinct circles, and within each of them, stood an individual who stood haughtily. There were gazes from the surrounding people that continuously glanced over the 4 people. Their gazes were all filled with respect and admiration. The reason for this was that these 4 people were the most illustrious senior direct disciples within the Desolate Hall. Standing at the rightmost was a man with an exceptionally muscular body. Dressed fully in grey, he had a tense expression that was devoid of smiles. With arms longer than usual and resembling that of an ape, he exuded a frightening aura. This person was the big senior disciple of the Desolate Hall, Pang Tong. The person who was closest to Pang Tong had a totally different physical stature. He was thin and small, with eyes brimming with intelligence and the occasional piercing gaze. Although there was quite a large number of well-built Desolate Hall disciples standing behind him, their imposing aura was incomparable to his. He was the second senior disciple of the Desolate Hall, Song-ju. On the left of Song-ju stood a man fully dressed in dark red, showing a cold and stern face. Hands crossed in front of his chest, he coldly stared at the Pill River in the distance, while his gaze devoid of compassion. At his side stood Tong Chuan with an awkward expression, who was seemingly hesitating about saying something. "You good for nothing. You let the chance of having the Pill River head immersion slip away from your hands. Furthermore, you were actually beaten by a newbie, truly disgraceful," the man dressed in red mocked in a cold voice. "Big brother Jiang Hao, Lin Dong's actual skills are not weak. It is justifiable that I lost to him." "Please calm down," explained Tong Chuan bitterly. "I know what to do, and I don't need you to teach me. HMPH. He may be skilled, however, Jiang Hao ain't a person who is easily bullied. I would like to see how arrogant this batch of newbies are. They didn't even show big senior respect," said Jiang Hao casually. Hearing that, Tong Chuan only laughed bitterly and shook his head. Jiang Hao's short fuse was famous within the Desolate Hall. Adding to the fire, the incident that Lin Dong had churned up was too large, which even made those senior direct disciples of the Desolate Hall feel slightly irritated. "Hey, senior brother Jiang, this new guy is quite extraordinary. Enduring at the bottom of the Pill River for 11 days is something that even the current you and me would find difficult to accomplish. If you want to take action, please be careful not to hit a brick wall." On the far left stood a youth dressed in white. This youth was the youngest member amongst the four of them. He was the fourth senior disciple of the Desolate Hall, Fang Yun. He was the youngest amongst the four, however his talent and intelligence was truly frightening. Just after entering Desolate Hall for 2 years, he had managed to reach a cultivation level similar to Pang Tong. HMPH. Only by testing would we know how capable he is. This isn't measured by the lips of a glib talker. Jiang Hao shot a look at Fang Yun and said, "I wouldn't have thought that even you guys who had shut yourselves off to cultivate would be attracted by this sight. Looks like you guys also hold Lin Dong in an important light. One must be taken seriously if one is able to endure the Pill River head immersion for 11 days, ha. There is a possibility that the contenders for the Great Desolation scripture this year would increase by an extra person." Fang Yun teased and laughed before turning his gaze towards the calm Pill River. He muttered, "In the past, Senior Ju Tong only managed to endure for 12 days. Jiang Hao's gaze narrowed slightly and he did not reply. However, that gaze was gradually turning solemn. While it was noisy and lively within the surroundings of the Pill River, a sudden gust of strong wind blew past a mountain top far away. 2 shadows descended from the sky and landed on top of a huge tree while looking down towards the Pill River in the distance. From their appearance, one could immediately tell they were the big senior sister of the Sky Hall, Ying Xiaoxiao, and her sister Ying Huanhuan. "That fellow has yet to surface," Ying Huanhuan uttered as she stared at the Pill River. Unable to resist and biting her lip, she resentfully said, "It can't be. Is that fellow truly able to reach the same result as Senior Ju Tong? How is this possible? Is there any justice in this world? How could that fellow ever match up to the likes of Senior Ju Tong? It would be great if he did not surface today. If so, his result would only equal that of Senior Ju Tong," replied Ying Xiaoxiao on a soft voice as she held onto her green sword. After hearing that, Ying Huanhuan gawked before understanding her meaning in a short while. Lin Dong had endured all this while because his goal was actually the same as that of Senior Ju Tong. And that was to fully absorb every last bit of Nirvana golden chi from the bottom of the Pill River. Hence, if Lin Dong was to surface now, it would mean that he only took 11 days to completely absorb all of the Nirvana golden chi at the bottom of the Pill River. In the past, Senior Ju Tong took 12 days. If that were to happen, Lin Dong's result would be even more terrifying than that godlike existence that was in the hearts of many Desolate Hall disciples. When she thought about this possibility, Ying Huanhuan could not help but use her pearly white teeth to bite her lips. She was truly unable to imagine how the fellow who regarded himself as infallible could actually surpass the idol in her heart. "He should continue and stay in there," muttered Ying Huanhuan as she rolled her eyes. Ying Xiaoxiao shot a look at her helplessly. Just when she tried to reply, Her facial expression suddenly changed and she quickly turned and faced towards the direction of the Pill River. The tranquil river surface suddenly started to bubble and boil. A frightening yuan power fluctuation started to erupt in waves from the Pill River. It seems like this matter would not end up the way you wanted. Ying Xiaoxiao stared towards the now bubbling Pill River and took a deep breath of the icy cold air. Letting that trace of coldness invade her heart and mind, she muttered this statement softly. This video will end here.